gosh, hello.
It's time.
Oh, I am so effusively excited to be back. We're teaching another boot camp. Actually, Carmen, you and I are teaching another boot camp. Etta, you're teaching a boot camp for the first time. How scary? Exciting?
It is scary. Yeah, so I was a learner many years ago, and this time just being back as an instructor, I'm super excited.
Great. And for folks who are comfortable sharing, where are you joining us from? But I'm also really excited to know why are you learning? So what do you want to get? What do you want to do with these web development skills once you polish them up?
Well, where are we tuning in from?
Oh, please, y'all first.
Okay, I can go ahead. Oh, so I'm currently in Turkey, and yeah. So where is everyone from?
Well, we're seeing some comments already. I'll go ahead and share that I'm tuning in from Vienna in Austria, but I'm originally from Chile. How about you, Jess? Where are you tuning in from?
Oh, so this is traditionally where I'd be like, hey, I'm tuning in from Birmingham, which is the best city in the UK, and it still is the best city in the UK. I have unfortunately moved to London, however. Brutal, terrifying, expensive.
Well, you're not the only
Fantastic.
one tuning in from London. We got folks tuning in from the Bahamas, from
Oh,
Houston in Texas, which I assume is the USA. Let's see what else. Toronto, Canada, Virginia, USA, London, New York, Denmark, Seattle, Washington, USA, Lisbon, Portugal, Brooklyn, New York. Yeah. South Africa, US citizen joining from Dominican Republic. Cool. Switzerland. Nice. Good to see folks turning in from all over the place. Shall I go ahead and introduce what we're doing?
please.
So, if you're tuning in and you just happen to find this live stream on Twitch or YouTube, hi. So, I'm Carmen. This is Jess. This is Etta, and we're the Bad Website Club. This is the launch party for our very first boot camp in a while, and we're going to be learning web development. Couple of things before we get started. Couple links. Couple of FYIs. Couple of everybody, don't worry, you're in good hands. So if you're joining in, and you're welcome to ask questions in the chat, make comments, share knowledge. Just so you know, by joining this bootcamp and participating, you're agreeing to abide by our code of conduct. If you haven't read it yet, go to badwebsite.club/code-of-conduct. The short version is please act in a way that is kind and constructive. And if you see anything out of sorts, please send a message to either myself, Jess, or Etta, and we'll sort it out. To stay up to date on the bootcamp, we have a new website, same URL though, so same address.
And new website compliments of Etta. Thank you very much for being our developer on this. It's a much less bad website club website.
It's a great website.
Thank you.
So go to badwebsite.club and you'll find everything there. The schedule you will find here on the same website, badwebsite.club/bootcamps/spring-2026. And if you want to keep up to date with these videos, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/@badwebsiteclub. And just so you know, you don't have to be there like every day at the same time. This is all recorded, but we're happy to answer any questions live. Last thing, Discord. If you go to the freeCodeCamp Discord channel, you'll find a bootcamp channel for us where you can join in and ask questions and really help one another, because that's the real idea here of the bootcamp, to have a cooperative learning experience. Did I miss anything? That was a lot of info at once.
Yeah, sounds good to me. You know what? Everybody's busy and everything is stressful in this big wide world. How about we just go ahead and shove our very first guest on?
That sounds wonderful. So I will be coordinating today. And I'm going to be bringing on our first guest who's here with us. Quincy, I'm going to bring you on stage. Hello, good to see you, Quincy.
Hey everyone, can you hear me all right?
Oh, we hear you wonderfully. So Quincy here is joining us from his very, very kind traveling schedule. So I'm so grateful to have you on with us. We're going to be doing a bit of a fireside chat with Q&A, which Jess will be kindly running for us. And Etta, how about you and I go hang out backstage?
Gosh.
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, catch you all later.
Hi, team. Quincy, hello. And
Hey.
for folks who aren't familiar with Quincy, you started out as a teacher and a school director.
Yes, I've worked as a teacher for like 20 years now, if you count my time with freeCodeCamp. Yeah.
I'm going to count it, yeah. I mean, like, I'm definitely not the boss of this. And you taught yourself how to code using online resources and got into working as a software engineer and then founded freeCodeCamp. So for learners who haven't used freeCodeCamp before, there's not going to be too many of them. What's the deal?
Sure, yeah. So you can learn math, programming, computer science for free at your own pace, and you can work alongside a really chill community of people who are supportive and want you to succeed. It's just like a super chill open source project. We're also a 501c3 charity, which means if you donate to freeCodeCamp, you can deduct it from your taxes, which is kind of cool. And we just are working on a lot of different tools around open source learning resources. That's like basically what we do.
Stunning. And we're so happy to have you joining us. We wanted to go ahead and just sort of introduce. You were kind enough to have me on your podcast, which was very nice. So I thought we might flip the script and have you join us and talk a little bit about online learning in a really unstructured way. And then after we see you off to your gate, we're going to have a talk from Bruce Lawson. And it's one of my favorite talks. I'll send you the video later.
Awesome. I'll check it asynchronously. Yeah. Thanks for accommodating me, Bruce, if you're listening. I was like, I've got to get through security in a little bit. It was just awkward timing, but I wanted to be here for this. I'm a huge believer in, as you say, building silly little things. I think that's the best way to learn, is like low stakes, building in public, building alongside friends, and just going through the process repeatedly and getting your proverbial hands dirty and not being a perfectionist about it, not being shy about your work, just doing it and doing it over and over and getting the proverbial reps and internalizing kind of the tacit knowledge of software development.
Do you know what? I love that, like doing the reps. For me, I'm going to stick to metaphors like learning to paint or learning to draw, where you're going to make horrible little sketches when you start. Mostly because you could not pay me enough or threaten me enough to make me do any kind of reps at my big age.
All right. Well, I won't try to tell you, but like if you do even a little bit of light exercise, it's great for you.
I exist against my will. There's no. You're probably right. So you founded freeCodeCamp. You all have supported, you think, thousands, hundreds of thousands of learners?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to like look at the actual database, there's like 20 million people in there or something like that have created a freeCodeCamp account over the years. And a lot of people don't even create an account. A lot of people don't even realize that we have like an interactive learning website. Like they're just like, oh, freeCodeCamp, I love that YouTube channel. Or they'll just listen to the podcast, or they'll just get my emails and not remember like how they even got on the email list.
Like that Quincy, he's a fine young man with the emails.
Well, I hope they think that, and I hope they don't think like, damn, leave me alone. But
So what inspired you to start freeCodeCamp?
Well, I was just learning programming myself, and I found it was extremely helpful to have like a cohort of people learning alongside me in San Francisco. I was just like living in San Francisco, sleeping on my friend's couch, while my wife continued to work down in Southern California, and eventually we were able to move up to the Bay Area. But I'd worked as a dev for a while, and I just wanted to do a lot of hackathons, and I just loved the collaborative learning experience. I wanted to make that available to everybody. Not everybody has the resources to drop everything and move to San Francisco. I mean, if you do have the resource, like I strongly encourage it. But people have like kids, they've got aging parents, they've got obligations, there are visa restrictions. There's like all kinds of reasons why you can't go there. So we wanted to try to recreate to an extent the ethos of like, the developer community. Like when you go to hacker spaces and hang out with the chill people that are hacking on hardware or building just different silly little things, as you like to call them, and just getting experience doing that. And then many of those people are going to go get a job at, a company or start their own company or do consulting, freelance work. And like, those are great people to know. So it's not just the skills, but it's also the people that you're working alongside, getting to know people. It's not actually that big of a community. It may sound like this massive community. There's like 20 million professional developers and all this stuff. But the practical reality is like a lot of those people are just kind of like doing their job, and they're not necessarily dialed into the community. But there are people that are like super active in the community like you. And I want more people to be like you, frankly. So
we're going to get into a compliment off, and we'll take that offline. So I hope this isn't controversial, but I sort of made a sound when you were like, move to San Francisco if you can. For me, I often have sort of an ethical pushback against that. So I'm originally from the San Francisco area and moved away. It's a difficult place. And you were really correct in saying there's visa restrictions. People can't leave their lives a lot of the time. For me, it's also kind of an ethical thing as well. We often see Silicon Valley and San Francisco as the center of tech. But we live in a global world where we've got even folks joining us today. We saw somebody from Myanmar. We've got folks I saw a bunch of folks say, hey, from Nigeria. So saying, hey, we're building for this global, like, users, like people who use technology. Making San Francisco an artificial capital of that always seems both ethically woofly to me, and yeah, I don't love it.
Yeah, well, I'll talk a little bit about that because I'm getting ready to fly over there. I also left San Francisco. I live in Plano, Texas, because they've got great public schools, better quality of life, like more affordable than San Francisco. And I could understand certainly the qualms with a lot of the industry, the whole tech bro culture, which you can read a lot about if you read like their recent articles in like the Atlantic. There was a great piece I read about the people that created like the cheating like glasses where you can like just cheat your way through life. Basically, that was a great article about Roy Lee, whom I haven't interviewed, but who I've listened to an interview with him, and I can absolutely see like I take ethical like exception with this. I don't want to be anything like these people and things like that. I will say that there's merit to just surrounding yourself with like people that are ambitious and doing things and learning. And not everybody in the Bay Area is like that. Obviously, you lived in the Bay Area. I lived there. I don't consider myself a tech bro. I don't consider you a tech bro. Obviously, you've left, but you're going to find interesting, chill people there too that do care about like the impact of the tools they're building and are actually building a lot of tools that will help kind of alleviate the problems that a lot of the other people are introducing. So the reason I say go there is it is like I learned a tremendous amount, and I think you can learn very quickly there. But to a large extent, a lot of that has been distributed now. Like back when I went, there wasn't a free online curriculum that you could just work through, like filled with like interactive textbooks on all the different programming subjects. You could go through the MIT Open Courseware, but that was a pretty grueling process. It wasn't really designed to be consumed that way. So yeah, and then you can join online communities like Bad Website Club and get a lot of what you would get if you were actually in the Bay Area. So you absolutely don't need to move there. I'm just saying, like I was in Southern California, it wasn't a huge move for me. I mean, any move is kind of big, but like I wouldn't discount like if you are able to go there, if you're young and like relatively unattached and can just pick up and go somewhere. Like if you just graduated from college and you're just kind of like applying into the void and stuff like that, for example, that's actually maybe viable, depending on how what resources you have available. But I think I probably talked a lot, and I hope it doesn't sound like I'm just like vacillating or being an apologist for the Bay Area tech scene, but I genuinely believe there's a lot to be learned from there, even if you can learn a lot from history without necessarily agreeing with the people that made those decisions and carried out those different acts and things like that. So if you can suspend judgment long enough to like try to learn, I do think that can be useful. Is all I'm saying.
And Yeah, just because I don't love the idea of it being the tech center of the world doesn't mean it doesn't hit a bit harder than a lot of. It's got more resources. Yeah.
Yeah, the
What?
practical reality is it's going to be very hard for us to create tech centers. And people are trying in, for example, Lagos. People are trying in Bengaluru and Beijing and places like that to build up an ecosystem that's comparable to what you have in the San Francisco Bay Area, certainly if you include like Silicon Valley and all that. But that's a monumental task, and it might take many years before there's something equivalent. You can't just, you know, have the Saudis fund like a tech city and then everybody moves there and okay, you've got a copy of Silicon Valley. There's so much tacit knowledge, so much talent over there, and like you said, there's the entire VC ecosystem. And if you're going to do anything that like requires a lot of funds, you may need that money unless you can, like, you have to be very fortunate to be able to bootstrap, or if you start a 501c3 charity, you might be able to get the community to support the building out of your entire I guess organization. But it's hard. It's very hard to work completely outside of that system anyway. I hope that doesn't sound too apologistic or too, like, I can totally understand why people don't want to move out there, but
The problem is, I will talk to you all day if you let me. And I wanted to really narrowly focus on online learning. So you built this wonderful, wonderful resource that tens of millions of people have learned from. If you had one thing, if you had a couple of things, one thing's a little unfair, and said, hey, I really recommend blah, or don't ever, like, what are the tips you'd want to bring folks who are just starting out on this boot camp?
yeah, don't be perfectionistic. For one, don't overthink things. Like, just take action, err on the side of action, err on the side of building. The number one thing I can say is don't be daunted. You're going to be looking at stack traces. You're going to be looking at cryptic JavaScript errors. You're going to be wondering why the heck you changed this property in CSS and it's like affecting all these other things. And you're going to have moments of like hopelessness and throwing your hands up. Don't give up. Like, just keep persevering through it and don't sweat it. Like, the most important thing I can say is this stuff is really hard. It is not a natural thing for a human to be able to contort their brain to be able to communicate effectively with a machine, and it's gonna take time. Another thing I'll say is you're gonna hear a lot of like FOMO and doomerism and stuff around like, oh, well, why should I bother learning this stuff? Like, if I can just have an LLM spit out good enough, and let me tell you, like, people who rely heavily on LLMs are going to easily be commoditized, and they're not going to really provide any value. Those are the first people that are going to be like essentially reproduced in agent form. The people who actually have put in the time and energy to build up skills and a fundamental understanding of how these systems work, and an ability to go in and actually do things properly. Lots of people can use a TI-84 calculator, but very few of them are working at CERN doing physics. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a big difference between being able to use tools and actually understanding what those tools are doing under the hood and being able to build better tools. You will top out very quickly if you rely just purely, or if you throw up your hands and just assume that magically, there's a lot of magical thinking going on right now around AI. And I would just say, like, sure, maybe the tools will continue to improve, but that does not mean you can neglect your fundamentals. And that's why I'm very happy that all of you have joined the Bad Website Club, because you're going to build up those fundamentals.
So I've got a couple more questions to ask you, but as we go, if any of the learners who are able to join us live want to ask questions, let me know, and we'll go ahead and put them up. Everything's chill. So, because we've got actually a question from Matthew Glasson saying, okay, you did already mention don't be a perfectionist, but how do we do that? How do we get over this sort of hill of perfectionism and wanting it right? How do we practically let go of that?
Yeah, we just have to embrace the jank and let go of that compulsive instinct that most people that are drawn to software development have. Like, a lot of us probably have clean rooms, a lot of us probably care about things like, having like organization in our computers. Like, we don't just have a desktop with like 50 files open and stuff like that, right? And so it can be a little unnatural for many of us to just kind of shrug and keep moving. But the practical reality is a lot of the things you're building are going to be thrown away. I wrote a lot when I was younger. I wrote novels. I wrote like lots of short stories and things like that. And I met a struggling writer who was working at a Denny's in like the late 90s, and he gave me this advice, and I always like thought of this advice. He said, throw your first million words away. Like, you need to write those million words to get to be a good writer, but nobody needs to read those words other than you. You know, you could just, and I would say, like, if you're not, like, with coding, you're going to probably throw away your first 20 or 30 projects, and they don't need to be perfect. Like, you should show them to people you trust. You can put them on the internet and learn in public, but I understand that not everybody has the desire to just put themselves out there and be that vulnerable. But if you're willing to do that, that'll definitely help you too. But yeah, I would just say, like, don't overthink it. Don't sweat it. It's going to be hard to let go and to not micromanage like a bunch of stuff. But if you try to get everything perfect from the outset, you're not really going to go very far. You're going to spend so much time at the beginning sweating. Like, it's kind of like if you read a Wikipedia article and every single time something's linked, you click on that and you're like, okay, I'm going to read this. Then I'll come back to this. You're going to spend an entire morning in the marginalia, essentially.
Yeah. And do you know what, marginalia? Easily one of my favorite words. I've seen a couple different folks asking about sort of job hunts these days. And last time I chatted to you, you said because job hunting and the job market is so global these days, it's really, really difficult to address. So if it's okay with folks, questions on job hunts and project, the market, we'll go ahead and we'll look at those in Discord so we can get a bit more nuance.
Yeah, I'll just say on the job hunt,
well.
yeah, find clients, like small businesses, organizations, people around you that just need something built for them. And if you can get them to pay you, even better. But like, that is something immediately doable that you can do without the daunting task of applying for jobs in today's pretty difficult job market, frankly, for everybody. Any knowledge worker is facing that. It's not just developers.
So one thing that I will move on from job hunting just because we will get bogged down on that. Not that it's important for folks, but it's difficult to give targeted stuff. The advice you've given, I really, really like. And one thing I'd add to this, so a lot of folks don't know, it feels like a secret, is if you're building websites, if you're building applications, if you're writing code for someone, if for a nonprofit, for your auntie, for your best friend, regardless of whether or not they're paying you for that, that is professional experience that goes on your resume or CV, whatever you call them where you are. And it like whether or not you got paid for making those websites, you're still a freelance developer, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I would say the definition of a professional developer is somebody who gets paid even, like, I think I built my first project for like less than $1,000 for a client. But it was a project. I know Jason, who runs the Code TV YouTube channel, which you should check out. He started out just building like websites for his emo band. He was like the guitarist and singer for the emo band.
Precious.
And he built that, and then he did it for a bunch of other bands that he met just touring and stuff. And he kind of strapped that together into a small business, but also just a ton of practice. Like, he was getting paid to practice essentially and expand his skills. And that's like a great example of kind of somebody who didn't necessarily, like, I don't even remember whether he got like a university degree or anything. I think he just threw himself into it and just started networking and finding one client to another. So yeah, that's good practice. Whether somebody pays you or not, you can still take pride in the fact that you're solving somebody's problems while you're getting reps. Yeah. Or while you're tending your garden. I don't know, some analogy that you feel more comfortable with.
Yeah. While you're doing bookbinding. So I loved this question. Obviously, I love all questions, and I'm not picking favorites. But if I was picking favorites, Quincy, how could somebody tap into creativity when they're trying to build a project from scratch? So, okay, be creative, make something weird. Our poor learners are constantly going to hear "get weird" from me and Carmen and Etta. How do you get weird?
I think a lot of it has to do with just throwing kind of social convention out the window and like not thinking of things the way that you think other people think of them, but thinking of ways maybe like a cat would look at it, or like trying to put yourself in other kind of like another perspective. I think a lot of creativity, like certainly like humor and stuff like that, comes from absurdity. So just dismissing conventional wisdom and kind of going back to basics. That's a great way to like tap into your curiosity, your creativity, and think about like don't constrain yourself with what is, concern yourself with what could be. What are the very like extreme limits of what could be? And I mean, that would be my off the cuff answer to that. I hope that's helpful.
That is not even remotely off the cuff. That sounds like you're cheating. That sounds pre-prepared. Okay. So also, I can't pick favorites based on usernames, but if I could, we've got a mighty unicorn dragon. Powerful, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, you are a self-taught learner. When in your learning process did the type of sort of mental models for programming, when did the way you think about coding sort of click, or has it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think I built like a lot of apps end to end, and after building a few of them, where I like, built out the front end, the back end to the extent that I needed to. Like I used Heroku a lot early on, and would just basically have like a boilerplate that I deployed with like Node.js. I'd use like there are various Node.js boilerplates, and I was almost purely concerned with the front end. But I did have to write some like router logic and stuff like that. But getting those live and just seeing them on the web and then showing them to friends at like dinner parties and stuff, like that was a great way for me to just kind of. It's not so much understanding, but confidence of understanding.
Okay.
If that makes sense,
Yeah.
like you could read a book and you could feel like, okay, I think I understand this, but once you actually understand it, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I understand it. There's like, if you can turn around and explain it to somebody like they're 5, that's a great exercise to verify that you actually understand something. That comes straight from Einstein himself. He said if you can't explain something to somebody like their 5-year-old, then you yourself don't sufficiently understand it.
All right. I'm going to cheat because I've got the clicky buttons and I can cheat. And I'm going to ask you one question from me. So it's 2026. The whole world is stressful. The whole world is weird, right? Right now, is there anything in tech or any specific type of technology or anything on the web that makes you really excited or really hopeful?
Yeah. I mean, Bad Website Club, of course.
Aw,
I think
flatterer, flatterer.
the community around freeCodeCamp. I was just checking out this website. It's Twitter, like Twitter with a D, and it's 140 characters of JavaScript. That's all you get. But people are creating like cool visualizations and art with just those. Of course, JS 13K. If you haven't heard of it, it's a game design competition where you write games that fit in 13 kilobytes of JavaScript, and I think that includes like libraries. It's like you can't. Yeah, it's really incredible. I see these amazing engineering projects like people that build games with like procedural level generation and everything like that, and condense these into a few hundred kilobytes as well. I mean, it's really incredible, like the engineering chops of these people. You can look at like the Amiga scene where they're like creating demos using like super archaic tech. When I'm in San Francisco, I'm going to go to Noisebridge, which is a hackerspace, and they have a lot of cool like hardware projects. I went to CalHacks, which is a hackathon at Berkeley, and I recorded a documentary. You can check that out, and you can just see I mean, obviously these are like Berkeley students for the most part, but a lot of them are students from other universities that applied and got in. And the Tree Hacks hackathon, that is going to drop next week. And I walked
Gosh.
around and like talked with all these people that got into the Stanford hackathon and looked at the projects they're building, many of which like safely transporting organs using technology to new donors, for example, helping first responders. A lot of these projects are like going to be, super real world impacting if they were pursued, but more likely like the people that created them are idealistic and understand how the tools work, and they're going to go on to create cool projects even outside of the hackathon projects. But like when I
Okay.
see just that level of ingenuity and frankly that just dismissal of what the world is and seeing instead what the world could be, that gives me so much hope.
So I'm conscious that we are keeping you from your plane, and I am absolutely not going to do that. So this has been really useful. I will point out that you said JavaScript a couple times, and we've had some folks in the
Yes.
chat like, are we going to do JavaScript? For this 10-week boot camp, we're going to really, really work on HTML, CSS, we're going to accessibility this whole time. The only time y'all are going to hear me yelling is going to be yelling, is about building. We're going to.
Yeah.
And if learners want to go on work on JavaScript next, we can just go ahead and push y'all to the next one. So last question, and we're going to cheat again and give you a canned question from somebody who's probably going to ask you one that's going to make you sound really cool. Naomi from the freeCodeCamp team is saying, on your way to board your flight, what kind of on your way out advice would you like to give learners joining the bootcamp?
Yeah, make friends. Make friends. These people that are alongside you, taking this, these are precisely the kind of people that you want to associate yourself with. They're ambitious. They are chill. If they're willing to like comply with the code of conduct, freeCodeCamp has a very aggressive code of conduct because there are a lot of toxic people in the world today, and a lot of people that have just given up and are trying to drag people down in their bitterness and stuff like that. And the people here are going to be super chill. You're going to learn a lot from them, and you should stay in touch with them. One of the best ways you can succeed in your career is to just have strong connections to your peers. And like I went to hackathons all the time. Like I saw the guy that founded Netlify, Matt Billman. Like he and I would always do hackathons. I wasn't on his team, but he'd be sitting like a table over from me, and now he runs Netlify. So like he's kind of in my cohort, so to speak, because we were going to hackathons at the same time. And the same thing, like you're going to be some of the people who are doing Bad Website Club right now are going to be in positions of being able to do a lot, make a significant impact on the world, either through companies or through charities or through open source projects. So get to know them and just have fun.
Fantastic. Quincy, I will not the boss of you, but I will lovingly kick you out so you don't miss your flight. I see a whole bunch of other questions that are really good. Do you know what? If you're in the freeCodeCamp Discord, I bet we can track Quincy down. Quincy,
sounds like a plan.
Thank you so much.
Happy coding, everybody. Thanks again, Jess.
Bye. Stunning. So let's go ahead and, having brutally sent Quincy on his way, if it's not rude, I'm going to ask Mr. Bruce Lawson to join us on the stage. Bruce, hello.
Hello, Jess. Hello, everybody. How are we all?
Fantastic. And Bruce, I'm going to introduce you really briefly because Bruce is someone who needs very little introduction. Bruce has been working on the web, since the web existed. He is a man of letters, of languages. He just came out with an album. He works the Vivaldi browser, and we'll be talking about different browsers, and you'll be doing browsers in your homework for solo work, y'all are grown, for Monday. Bruce, I'm going to add your slides to the stage. If you can talk to us about the lovely side of HTML, I'd really appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bruce. As Jess said, I've been working on the web for 25 years now, which is why I look as derelict as I do. I don't know if you can see me. This talk is how Timbo made loveliness, which is what HTML actually stands for. Timbo, of course, refers to Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the man who invented the web and gave it away for free. Hurrah for Sir Timbo. There might be a lot of acronyms and things in this talk you don't know. Don't worry, you don't need to remember them. Everybody who works on the web spends a lot of time Googling, other search engines are available, to find out syntax, etc. We all do it. We don't commit it to memory. The most important skill that you'll develop is to know what's possible and to know how to look it up. And by knowing what's possible, what tool you should use. That's the theme of this talk. So if you don't know some of the acronyms, don't panic. If you do, I apologize if you think I'm talking down to you, but hopefully you'll get something from this exploration of the mindset of a true web developer. I have a blog at brucelawson.co.uk. I'm aware that many of you will be coming to coding for the first time from many disparate backgrounds. My background is I was an actor, then I was a Fortran programmer. I was a kindergarten teacher, a musician. I was a volunteer pharmacist in Calcutta, if there's anybody from India there. I know it's Kolkata now, but it was Calcutta when I was there. I was a movie extra in Bombay, a tarot card reader in Istanbul, English tutor to a princess in Thailand, a tech lead for a large legal organization, accessibility lead for a large charity, and then a healthcare firm. And now I'm technical communications at Vivaldi Browser. We are an independent browser based in Oslo, Norway. We don't have any external investors. There's 60 people, and we're all co-owners of the company. We make a browser that we want to use rather than investors force us to snoop on you and sell them your data. But that's the product pitch aside, just so my boss is happy that I spent a bit of work time talking to you. My background is English literature and drama. So, of course, I like nothing better than sitting, contemplating flowers and the quivering at the aesthetic glory of the universe while I read poetry. So if I can understand this stuff, you certainly can, my friends. Weirdly, for somebody of my background, I found myself one of the co-editors of the HTML 5.3 specification at the W3C. I was one of the people who was on the committee that drafted the British standard for web accessibility, BS 8878, which is now an international standard. And I co-wrote 2 books, one on HTML5 and one on web accessibility. So yeah, you don't have to have a science or mathematics background to be good at coding. What you do have to have is empathy for the people who will be using your websites. I got into the web in the late 90s. I was a kindergarten teacher, a primary school teacher, I should say, in Bangkok, in Thailand. And I kind of weirdly lost the proper use of my left eye, left arm, left leg. And when I went to the doctor, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Here's a photograph of my very own brain with one of the lesions circled in it in red. I hope this doesn't contravene the code of conduct by showing a photograph of my naked cortex to you. And at the time in Bangkok, there was pre-mass internet, and there wasn't very much explanation in the English language available on multiple sclerosis. So the doctors very kindly photocopied some pages from a medical book full of encouraging pictures of autopsied brains. When I learned to walk again and got out of hospital, I went to this internet cafe that was under my apartment. An internet cafe was where you could pay some money to use a computer. And I used the computer and I went to Alta Vista, which was like Google, but in black and white and powered by Steam, and typed in multiple sclerosis to learn. And I found this website, Julie's Joint, proper late 90s design there. And it was by a lady in London who'd been diagnosed with MS. And she set up this community where people all across the world on all kinds of internet and all kinds of rickety old machines could collaborate and communicate and encourage and support each other. And it made me think, wow, this is amazing. Everybody can communicate with everybody else practically for free. This is the future of communication. And as an English literature and drama graduate, that interested me. Weirdly, the lady Julie worked for the Royal National Institute for the Blind, and she wrote a foreword in one of the books that I co-wrote. So thank you, Julie Howell. So I'm an HTML-caholic. HTML, if you don't know, is the foundational language that every website ever made is written in. It's grown a lot over the years, but it's basically 120 words called elements, sometimes called tags. And that is the vocabulary that you will use to write web pages. And just like with a natural language, the vocabulary you use is important. And that's what conveys the meaning of your website. As Uncle Timbo said in the quote that everybody uses, the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. So Uncle Timbo went on to found the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, which sets the standards for the languages that the web is written in, or many of the languages that the web is written in. Crucially, all of these languages are open. Nobody owns them. Nobody has a patent on them. You can write them with the free text editor that comes with your operating system. You don't need any special software to write the web, just a text editor and a browser to test with. But you should have lots of browsers to test with. Don't just use Chrome to test. Use as many different browsers you can find, because there are many of them out there. And the W3C said the web is fundamentally designed to work for all people, whatever their hardware, software, language, location, or ability. Because, of course, not everybody in the world is using a fancy MacBook Pro or the latest iPhone. Most people in the world are using Windows computers, and most people in the world are using rickety old Androids that cost about under $150 on slow networks. And you never know where your next customers come from. Just because you think you're only talking to people in Silicon Valley doesn't mean that nobody else wants to buy or read your stuff. The raw materials of the web are the Holy Trinity: HTML, which we discussed is the vocabulary that tells people what your content is about; CSS, that describes how you want your content to look; and JavaScript, which is the way of describing how your content behaves. These are foundational. There is no cheat code to learning these, and you will learn them. They are not complicated, certainly not in syntax, etc. They might be a bit weird for various reasons that we'll come to, but you will not be a web developer if you do not put the effort in to have a reasonable understanding of these three languages. I don't write very good JavaScript, but I can read it. I can't remember all the syntax for CSS, but I know how to look it up. But I'm very good at HTML because it's the easiest and I'm not the cleverest. Here's an analogy. HTML is like the blueprint. So here is a blueprint or an architectural drawing of a kitchen. You can see that it's got the dimensions and everything, and it tells you that all the outlets are to be mounted 12 inches above the countertops, and this is a fridge, and this is a gas range, and this is a dishwasher. It wouldn't be useful if it just said appliance or thing. It's useful to distinguish dishwasher from the sink, for example. But none of this describes the color scheme or the decoration, because HTML is the blueprint. It describes what the things are and where they sit in relationship to each other. The CSS equivalent is the decoration. So here is one way to decorate that kitchen. There are other ways to decorate the same kitchen. Notice that the appliances are still the same. They're in the same places. It's just the color scheme, etc., that's changed. That decoration is CSS. The blueprint is the HTML. And here's an example without the microwave. I like to think of JavaScript as being like your home automation or your super fancy new appliance. If the microwave were JavaScript in this kitchen, you can still cook your meal. Your website should work without JavaScript. They might not work as well without JavaScript, but you should still be able to buy the thing you're trying to buy, or find out the information you want to find out, or read the restaurant menu of the restaurant you're planning to go to. Those should still be accomplishable without JavaScript. And the most important thing for you folks learning to develop for the web is to understand the difference between these languages. If you do, you will make the websites that you produce will be more performant. They will run faster, and Google will penalize slow websites by giving them lower search engine results. And there's a whole wealth of research that shows that users will spend more time and more money on websites that run fast. The websites that you write will be more accessible to people with disabilities, which is a legal requirement in many countries, and in my opinion, a moral requirement for everybody. Your websites will be more robust. That is, if the JavaScript doesn't load because somebody's on a slow network or behind a corporate firewall, if your website doesn't have JavaScript, it should still work, as we've discussed. The websites that you write, when you understand the difference between these languages, you'll write less code, and less code to write means less code to test, and less code to test means more time in the pub or the coffee shop or the tea room or with your family, the things you like to do, instead of testing websites. The mindset is use HTML properly. Use it for what it's meant for, which is describing the structure and the blueprint. Write more HTML. Don't write loads of JavaScript if HTML can do the job, because it's simpler. Use CSS properly. Make sure that the CSS you write gracefully degrades in older browsers. And remember that built-in beats bolt-on bigly, as the FIFA Peace Prize winner might say if he were teaching you HTML. By this I mean, if it's built into the web platform, like if an HTML element will do the thing, don't try to rewrite it in JavaScript. Use the built-in thing. Here's a book on furniture making. We've gone from kitchens to furniture in my elaborate method of torturing metaphors. Since 1970, this book has been the Bible for woodworkers. And in the introduction, it says, any textbook must deal primarily with the basic handicrafts, for it is on this groundwork that machine production is built. And all the machine can ever do is to translate the essential hand operations into rotary movements of the cutting tool. I say this because there are many frameworks that you will come across that claim to be able to do all of the hard work for you. Some will be AI as you move forward and as AI takes over the world. But there are things like React or Ember or Angular that you will meet that claim to be able to do everything. But if you don't know the foundational stuff, you will not make good websites, even with these things. So the first third of this book about furniture making doesn't talk about furniture making at all. It will tell you the moisture content of various kinds of wood and the tangential shrinkage and the radial shrinkage of each type of wood. It will give you cross sections of different kinds of wood, and photographs of the grain of different kinds of wood, because unless you understand and really get into the raw materials, the HTML and the CSS, everything else you will not be able to use properly. Anyone who has been shown how to force a piece of wood against a mechanical saw will have learned very little. But if he has had to saw that piece of wood by hand, he will be more likely to know that much more about it. He will have a greater respect for it and will understand in greater depth the problems that will have to be faced in its manipulation, the book says. Here's another book, Japanese Woodworking Tools, Their Tradition, Spirit and Use by Toshio Odate. And this book's really interesting. It defines the word shokunin. The Japanese word shokunin is defined by both Japanese and Japanese English dictionaries as craftsman or artisan, but such a literal description does not fully express the deeper meaning. Shokunin means not only having a technical skill, but also implies an attitude and a social consciousness, a social obligation to work his best for the general welfare of the people, an obligation both material and spiritual. And I want you to become shokunin of the web. Make the websites, but make them well. Make them well for your clients or whoever's asked you to make the site. Make sure that it works on mobile phones. Make sure that it works on very slow networks. Make sure that it works without JavaScript. Make sure that somebody who is blind can maneuver their way around the page by using the underneath stuff, the HTML. I'll show you that later. So HTML, it's currently, some people call it HTML5, but it doesn't really have a version. It is a living standard. It just continues to grow. And what's really unusual about HTML is that you can never break the web. So if something was ever in HTML, it's still in HTML. We can never allow websites not to work in the future. They might look rubbish, but they should still work. This thing, it would be terrible if 20 years worth of websites just didn't work in browsers because we changed the language. So it's very unusual in that respect. And there are some serious design principles that go behind the language and which have to be considered by everybody who proposes to add something to the language in the W3C or WhatWG, who are another group who make HTML. Very briefly, the design principles are thus. HTML has to be compatible with every device, mobile phone, a screen reader that reads out content to blind people, a braille reader that lifts up little pins in braille for other blind people. It must support existing content. Don't break the web. When you're inventing something, do not reinvent the wheel. It must be solving real problems. HTML can't solve every problem, but it's designed to solve the most common problems. And there's a priority of constituencies. So the end user of the website is the most important, then the web developer, then the browser maker, then the people who write the specification, and lowest down of all is theoretical purity. So if something makes the web better for the end user, but slightly harder for a web developer and really tricky for a browser developer, and oh my God, this is insanely difficult for the person writing the specification, then that's good because of the priority of constituencies. HTML has to be secure by design, separation of concerns, one language for content, HTML, one language for styling, CSS, one language for behavior, JavaScript. It has to be interoperable. So we have to define the behavior perfectly. You have to be able to say what any browser in the world on any device, invented or yet to be invented, will do with any particular element. Has to avoid needless complexity, has to handle errors gracefully. It must be media independent. So if a website can't show pictures, then it should be able to show text that you, as the website author, give it as an alternate. It has to support all world languages. So left to right, like English, right to left, like Hebrew and Arabic, vertical, like some Chinese, Japanese, and Korean languages. It has to be accessible to people with disabilities. As Sir Uncle Timbo said, this is for everyone. So this is an example of the very first website in a modern browser. And as you can see, the links can be clicked, and as you narrow the screen or widen the screen, all of the text reflows. It's all readable. You don't have to horizontally scroll. And that is, out of the box, perfectly accessible, perfectly responsive. And if a website isn't those things, it's because we as developers broke it. Out of the box, the web is accessible and responsive and does what it should do. But we can break it if we choose by deciding that every website has to be a certain fixed width. In the old days, we all thought that 800 by 600 was the standard monitor size, so we built websites for that. Then people became beloved of the iPhone, so they would build websites that were 320 pixels wide. This is wrong. We can break it by choosing bad contrast, so very small light grey fonts with thin strokes and a white background might look arty, but it's really hard to read for a middle-aged man like myself. Or you could break it with terrible fonts or terrible colours. Choosing pixel perfect layout. So if somebody comes to it with a narrow window on their browser, either because then they have multiple windows open on the desktop or because they're using a mobile phone, they have to horizontally scroll. We can choose to do that, but we shouldn't do that. You can do it. You can break the web by putting videos on there without any captions. So deaf people just see the pictures but don't hear the content. You can break it by stopping people using the keyboard to navigate. Not everybody uses a mouse. Blind people don't use a mouse because you need hand-to-eye coordination. People with Parkinson's might choose not to use a mouse. People like me with multiple sclerosis might not use a mouse. Older people with arthritis might choose not to use a mouse. They use the keyboard. By default, the web is keyboard accessible. As a developer, you can turn that off and break it. Don't do that. You could choose to remove the focus ring indicator. By default, excuse me, the browser will show a blue circle around the thing that is currently focused on the screen. You can turn that off as a developer, but don't. A friend of mine, Leonie Watson, who herself is a blind web developer and is chair of the board at the World Wide Web Consortium now, she tweeted, "I love that Billy Gregory is being channeled at ID24 with the best quote ever. When UX doesn't consider all users, it should be known as some users experience or sucks." There are people who will tell you that you don't really need to know HTML and CSS, that you can do it all with JavaScript. These people are to be avoided because these people don't know how to use the right tools for the job. So you will see things like this. The 4 things you need to do to become a full stack developer is have a fundamental understanding of JavaScript. I don't. Of course, you can't do full stack JavaScript development or any web development for that matter without learning JavaScript itself. This is nonsense. You need to know a front-end framework. No, you don't. You need to know Bootstrap 4. No, you don't. And then last, they put HTML and CSS. They treat it as an afterthought. As for HTML, there's not much to learn right away, and you can kind of learn as you go. This will save you a huge amount of headache when fiddling with your CSS code. This dismissive term, fiddling with your CSS code, you don't need to learn HTML. You can learn it as you go. This is really dangerous. So people who believe this will make sites that contravene accessibility legislation, that are grindingly slow, that only really work on maximum spec machines. They don't know the raw materials. So HTML is declarative. You'd say, and if you don't understand what this means, that's fine, you will learn it. You say, I want a button, and I want that button to say, click me. And this will magically conjure up a button, and this button will change its state when you hover over it, and it will look a bit different when you click it, and when you click it, it will send that data somewhere. And this all happens because you declared, let it be so. You declared, I want a button. Everything else is just given to you by the web. HTML is fault tolerant. So in the old days, there was an element called the blink tag. This still works in some browsers, although it's not standard HTML. But as I said, once something's gone in HTML, you can't take it out. And in a browser that does support it, it will blink on and off. And the words, oh my God, you're having a seizure, will blink on and off. But in a browser that doesn't understand the blink tag, the content, the stuff in between the tags, still shows. It doesn't do anything, it doesn't blink, but you can still read the content. If a browser doesn't understand an HTML tag, it will still show the content because the content is the king. And this means that browsers are backwards and forwards compatible. So HTML5 introduced the video element. Here I have a video, the source is video.mp4, and between the opening video element and the closing video element is some content, a paragraph that says I can't play it, and a link that says download it here. In a modern browser that does understand the video element, it will show you the video. In a very old browser that doesn't understand the video element, it won't show you the video, but it will show you the text. I can't play it, download it here. Then the user can download it onto their device and use the device's built-in video player to play it. That's a worse experience, but you still get access to the content. That's called graceful degradation. I'm going to skip over these slides because I'm running slightly behind time. Also, part of HTML is we pave a cowpath. We try to encode into the language what developers are doing already, or syntax that developers are familiar with. And the reason we do this is because if we make it so that it's easy for developers to learn, it will stick in their heads and then they will use the right tags. So I showed you the very first website in a modern browser. This is a modern website in the very first browser. This is my personal homepage. And this is the first ever web browser. And you can see, it doesn't look pretty. There's no colors, there's no background stuff, there's a few funny characters, but everything still works. The content is still usable. It's a worse experience than using a modern browser, but it will work. You could do the thing you want to do. And that's why HTML is such a powerful language. That's why it runs billions of websites. HTML is interoperable. If you write it wrong, every browser will nevertheless do the same thing. It might not be the thing you want it to do, but at least every browser will do the same weird thing. HTML has a parsing algorithm, it's called, that ensures that every browser will behave the same with the same content, even if that content is badly formed. I like to think of this as the HTML5 ninja. It's super powerful, but nobody ever thinks about it or sees it. CSS is also fault tolerant. Here I'm saying that my button, I want its color to be black. That means the text will be black. I want its background to be white. I want its background image to be a linear gradient, and I want its background image to have this paint thing. Now, a browser that doesn't understand background image paint, but does understand background image linear gradient will do that. A browser that doesn't understand background linear gradient will just have black text on a white background. It might not be what you intended, but it will still work. JavaScript is not declarative. I actually think they're throwing me out of this building, so I'm going to go really fast. So Uncle Timbo said, the choice of language is a common design choice. The low power end of the scale is simpler to design, implement, and use. And the high power end of the scale has all the attraction of being an open-ended hook into which anything can be placed. A door to use is bounded only by the imagination of the programmer. You need to use the least powerful language that gets the job done. So if you can do the job in HTML and JavaScript, choose HTML as the lowest power. Use the right tool for the job. And again, I'm being thrown out of this building because I thought I was on a little bit earlier. So I shall go through these fast. HTML gives you free stuff. So here is a demo. Check if you don't want to not opt out of cancelling or stopping sending you spam forever. One of them, the first one, if I click in the text, nothing happens. I have to be able to hit that checkbox. The second one, I can click anywhere. So that means that if I'm not terribly accurate with my mouse, or if I've got a fat, chubby developer finger, I don't need to be super accurate. The second one is using HTML correctly. I've got a label and I've associated it with the correct input, and that means that that input is clickable. If I don't do that, if I don't associate the label with the input, I can still click the input, but the label is inert. That's just given to you for free. If you choose not to use this, if you have a meaningless div element and you say, click me if you can, you have to reinvent the wheel and re-implement all of the stuff that HTML gave you for free. You have to set an ARIA role in HTML or JavaScript. You have to remember to manage focusability. You have to remember to listen for the correct key presses on the keyboard, or just use a button. So here we have a very typical website. I've got div ID equals nav, div ID equals header, div ID equals article, div ID equals footer. And this will work, but the div element has no special meaning at all. If you use modern HTML, browsers and screen readers and things like that know what these things mean. And that's really useful. A screen reader user, for example, 18% of screen reader users will use these landmarks and regions whenever they're available. Only 16% of people never use them. What this means is the screen reader user has a keyboard shortcut that can jump straight to the header, straight to the footer, jump straight to the next article, jump straight to the navigation. But if you don't use this header tag, this nav tag, etc., then the screen reader user can't jump between them because the device doesn't know what your content means. Developers, you need to use headings, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, etc. People who use screen readers use those 71% of the time. But if you don't use them, then they can't use those things for navigation. And again, heading 1, heading 2, etc. If you don't use them, that's unavailable to a screen reader user. Again, I'm going to go through this fast because I think they are throwing me out of the building. And this isn't just for disabled people. Research shows that websites that are designed well to work for people with disabilities are also better for people who are not disabled. I will give your host these slides and you can look at these. As a friend of mine, Jamie Knight, who is autistic and a senior researcher at the BBC, said, no one comes to our sites disabled. They come with impairments and we disable them. Where the fluffy bunny of HTML goes, the Tweety bird of accessibility goes along for the ride. And these two were absolutely delicious, by the way. What can you do? You can learn the semantics of HTML. There's 120 elements, that's all. To put that into perspective, most 2-year-olds can say about 100 words. By the time your toddler is 2.5, she'll probably know close to 300 words. So I want you to have the same HTML skills, 120 words, as this baby has. And by the way, this was delicious too. You can run automated tests for low-hanging fruit, e.g. color contrast. Those are the most common problems on the web. And you can use HTML and CSS wherever possible and make sites work without JavaScript and then enhance them with JavaScript. And choose your libraries carefully. JavaScript is increasing on the web. Now, the average web page, not website or app, the average web page is bigger than the first Doom program. And again, I'm going to go past all these because I'm being thrown out. Why is this important? Developing countries are home to 94% of the global offline population. And the World Bank said making the internet universally accessible and affordable should be a global priority. For some people, the internet is a health manual for where there is no doctor. For some people, it is a method of reading textbooks when textbooks are too expensive to buy. For some people, it is a way of hearing opinions that governments might not like from around the world. As Mr. Ghanem, an internet activist from Egypt, said, if you want to liberate a country, give them the internet. Because the internet is not computers. The internet isn't clouds. The internet is these women in a village in Africa. The internet is this blind fella in Toronto. The internet is these women on a bus that I met in India. The internet is this lady in a wheelchair in Taipei. The internet is this man and his granddaughter I met in Cambodia. The internet is this man on a subway train in New York. As Sir Uncle Timbo said, this is for everyone. And thank you. I better go before they lock me in this weekend. I will send the slides to your hosts and good luck on your coding journey.
Thank you, Bruce. And I'm so sorry you're getting kicked out, but we massively appreciate you being here with us.
It's a pleasure, Carmen.
It's such a joy. Folks, can we show some love in the chat for Bruce? I know you're not going to see it, but you'll know it's there.
I can feel the love already, Carmen. Thank you.
Fantastic. Folks, I'm so sorry we're not going to be able to have Bruce answer questions, but we will share the slides and
I'd be happy to come back and do a Q&A from my home office on another day, if that would be useful, Carmen.
You are such a joy, Bruce. I would love to take you up on it, but we also want to respect your time and rest.
No, it's fine. It's just I was in this office for a meeting. I've never been here before, and all the lights are going off. So
yeah,
I better go.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, let's move right along. We have one more session today to share with you. And it is from a familiar face you've seen already. I'm going to bring in Jess. Hey, Jess.
Hello. I thought that I would go ahead and just do a really quick session about the most boring topic.
Oh, no, it's super exciting. I can't wait. Same thing as before, folks. If you've got any questions, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. I'm that annoying at Hola Soy Milk one who's answering stuff. Yeah. Jess, please tell us about note-taking.
Fantastic. If it's okay, I will send you to timeout, and I will bring on some very hastily constructed slides. So, for this boot camp, we're using a flipped classroom model. No panic, nothing's wrong. What this means is we're asking you to go and do the reading or try and do the exercises on your own, and then bring your questions before to our stream or to Discord if you're not coming to the streams live. We've got a really fantastic community of global learners, and it's really, really hard. It might be impossible to find a time that works for everyone. So to introduce myself quickly, I'm Jessica Rose. This is not my chicken. I just wanted to pick it up, and she was very soft. She was such a good chicken. Since we're having you do some learning on your own and bring that to share in class, we're asking you to take notes. And I just wanted to go super, super fast over some very general tips and tricks for taking, hopefully, good notes. Jess, you may ask, because we're besties now, you're on the stream. You say, why do I even have to take notes? Well, it helps your learning right away in a couple of different ways. When we write out a new concept or we write down the definition of a new term in our own words, it helps reinforce our understanding. You've got to be really, really careful. If you just copy and paste that over, that doesn't do it. But writing it out, either freehand or typey, helps sort of cement that understanding of this brand new word. Also, it kind of acts like a little bit of a test. If you get a brand new concept, and I'm going to give you a concept we'll look at next week. If you're taking a look at headings, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and you haven't seen them at all yet, when you have to write out those notes about headings in your own terms, it kind of tests whether or not you really understood those. Bruce's suggestion that if you can explain something like you're explaining it to a 5-year-old, you probably understand it well, really stands up in our note-taking. If you can write out a new concept or a new term in your own words, you might understand it. It also gives us a parking lot for questions and concepts we want to explore later. Can you all sort of raise your hand or give me a sad face or any kind of emoji reaction in the chat? Have you ever been studying something online and then you have a question or, oh, you want to learn more about something and you go to the web and you look it up and you look up a little more. Oh, and then you go over here and look something else up. And then it's 2 hours later and you didn't finish studying what you meant to study. Hopefully, this is not relatable for any of you, but for me, having a parking lot in my notes to say, cool, I have a question, but I'm going to write it in my notes so that I don't switch tasks now. Oh no, a lot of people in the chat are like, me too. Sorry, y'all. So having a parking lot in your notes for Why do I have to use headings from one down in that order? If you write it down in your notes as it occurs to you, you'll know, you'll be able to refer back to your notes and say, I'm going to go look this up. I'm going to answer this without getting sidetracked to go focus on something new. So these are some ways that taking notes helps you right now as you're studying. But it's also really good for your future learning. When we're asking you to take notes, we're not just asking you to take notes on new concepts of what you learn. When you don't understand something, or when something seems weird, or when you want to know a little bit more about something, it gives you space to write down a question. Often, you'll be able to answer those questions on your own, looking at a web search or reading some documentation. But if you want to go ahead and bring those to Discord, if you want to bring them to a stream, this way you won't lose track of the questions you want to ask. Also, it creates a record of the new concepts you've learned, someplace where you can come back and get to them quickly. If I forgot what the blink tag is, we won't study the blink tag. I can go back to my notes and say, oh, I remember that I wrote about the blink tag. Yeah. And it kind of gives you a glossary to work from. And it also, I really like these as a way to create sort of an artifact of learning. When we keep notes about our understanding, you can go back. So when you finish this, if you stay with us for the whole 10 weeks, going back and looking at your week 1 notes, you're really going to feel how much progress you made. It's a really, really good way to get to feel great about how much you've done. Some people really love to go back and review their notes from the day before, the next day, and it's a really good practice. I recommend it, but I rarely do it myself, so I'm not going to push too much. What should you use to take notes? It's going to sound like a cruel way to ask this, but I don't care. But I don't care in a good way. These notes are your notes, right? You can take them in whatever way works best for you. I know a lot of people like to use a paper notebook or scratch paper so they can draw in it. Some people like to use a digital cloud document like a Google Doc or a Proton Doc. Some people like to have an offline text or word processing file on their computer. I know. Some people have really fancy note-taking applications, but please, if you don't already use one of these, don't get one. You probably don't need one. Just try whatever works best for you. You can switch, you can trade. These notes are really about what works for you. What should I put in these notes? Oh no. Again, lovingly, I don't care. These are yours. You can make the choices that work best for you. You should write down the things that work for you, not for me, not for somebody else nobody else is going to look at your notes unless you want to share them. But you're the one using them. Take notes about the things that you find the most useful. One piece of advice I will give you is don't worry too much about building a template or a format for your notes. You can add more structure later, especially when you start the course. Just get into the practice of making notes. Make them as messy as you want to be. Yeah, you can always bring order to disorder later in the course. We do, however, recommend including when you find a new term or a new concept, write that out and sort of a definition in your own words. If you want to make notes about or sketches detailing a flow of new technical processes you've learned, this is really, really good. That parking lot we talked about. So I use a little square box for a to-do tick box for anything you want to make sure you look up after your study session. Please, 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 if it's okay, write down any questions about anything you don't understand. This way, if you can't find the answer by looking them up, and you can't work out the answer by experimenting, you can bring them to Discord or you can bring them to the next stream. Oh, and if I can be selfish, please. If you find an external resource that was really good for helping you understand a concept, you probably want to save or write down that link, both for yourself in case you want to come back and use it later, or if you want to share it with the class, please. I also use a special part in my notes called the FOMO parking lot. This is the fear of missing out. And I found that, so I'm a very old lady and I've worked with learners for a long time. One thing that I found is a problem for almost everybody when they first start in a space is you'll hear so many new concepts. And it feels like everyone else in web development already knows all of these terms and they already know all of these tools. And surely you have to learn every single one, right? You don't. And the thing is, I can't tell you which concepts or which tools you're going to need yet. I keep a FOMO parking lot, and whenever you hear a new term, you're like, oh, what's a microservice? We don't have to worry about microservices. This is just an example. Do I need to learn microservices? Cool. Maybe you need to learn microservices. Let's write microservices in our fear of missing out parking lot, and let's add one tally. Later on, if you're studying and you're looking at the web and you're reading stuff and you see microservices again, you're like, oh, do I need to know? Maybe you need to learn microservices, but this is the second time you've seen it. Let's add another tally to your fear of missing out parking lot. This way, when you get to the end of your course or the end of your week, you can look at this and say, oof, do you know what? I keep hearing about Rust for the kind of projects I want to do. Maybe I'm going to prioritize learning Rust next. And I will say for everybody in here at your level, I don't recommend learning Rust next. I hear about Rust a lot because Etta is really good at Rust, and my partner who I live with writes some Rust. So this fear of missing out parking lot just means that when you hear a new concept, you can put it in the parking lot and then add a tally every time you hear a new one, a new mention of the same one. Whew. Yeah. One of the difficult things about learning new tech concepts is there's a whole bunch of personalities in tech that are super duper confident. You'll hear people on streams or on videos or on podcasts or writing, and they'll be so confident. They'll say, you need to learn Tailwind. If you don't learn Tailwind, you're not a real developer. It's like, okay. Very opinionated. And maybe at this stage in my learning, I don't know whether or not they're right. By putting this in the fear of missing out parking lot, and maybe even adding, if I have a digital fear of missing out parking lot, I could add a link to this video or to this post, or I could link to this blog post and say, cool, I'm not going to think about this right now, but I'm just going to come back to this in a week or in a month or every quarter and look at this parking lot to help me decide what I want to learn next. As an advanced practice, some folks really like to blog their notes. So this is great. So blogging here is like writing a journal on the web, and folks have a bunch of different approaches. Some people like to take their messy, imperfect, bad website club style notes and just put them on the web just like that, with no editing. I love it. Some people like to take the time and edit versions of their notes and publish a prettier, more collected version of the notes to their web. I love that. Some people like to go through their notes and say, well, here's this concept. I want to write a blog post explaining just this concept or tutorial. I love it. I love all of these approaches to blogging your notes and blogging your learning, but you don't have to. The big thing I would say, and a big thing I see with a lot of learners, is folks will say, I can't keep taking my notes, or I can't move on to the next unit until I go back and write a beautiful version of my notes for my blog. And this becomes a blocker to moving forward or to taking their messy notes. If you intend to blog some of your learning, amazing, but this will be as bossy as I get. Don't you dare, please, use blogging as sort of a blocker to making your messy notes and keep moving. Let's just do some frequently asked questions. Carmen, can I get you back? Can you ask me some of these questions?
Hi. Yeah, totally.
Hey.
You want me to ask the ones on your slide?
Yeah,
Cool.
just ask me that.
So, Jess, I'm not much of a note taker. Do I have to take notes?
So, because most learners aren't in London, I probably can't make you. I can't make, and y'all are grown-ups. I wouldn't want to try and make you do anything. But we have note-taking listed as one of our assigned activities for solo activities because we genuinely believe that this is a really, really good way to learn.
Cool. Thank you. My next question is, or your next question is, since you just are taking notes, why don't I just use yours to learn?
Yeah, so on the streams, we'll have notes from our concepts that your instructor, myself or Carmen or Edda, we'll have notes that we made, and we're going to bring those to class to talk through the new concepts. You
Thank
could just use our notes, but that does, like, you didn't have to write those in your own words. So you're not going to have walked through the cognitive process of, hey, this is helping reinforce my understanding. And it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't test whether or not you understand it at all.
Last question is, Jess, are you gonna check our notes? Because my spelling is bad.
Oh gosh. So throughout this whole boot camp, we're not going to check your progress. There's no hard deadlines. We're going to be moving at a pretty fast pace. But if you need some extra time to catch up on something, or a lot of our learners will say, hey, I had something happen. I got a promotion. I got in a car accident. I got a new puppy. I need to pause my learning. Our videos are going to be available afterwards, and your progress on the freeCodeCamp curriculum doesn't go away. Yeah? We're never going to check your work. There's no hard deadlines, and I am never going to ask to see your notes. If folks are really excited to show them off to other learners, cool. And you might want to bring questions from your notes into discussions. But yeah, no, there's a whole bunch of you. And I love there being a whole bunch of you. I love to learn with all of you. But I don't have the capacity to check y'all's notes. And y'all are grown-ups. You don't want me to.
Thank you, Jess.
But yeah, so the big one is, do we have any questions that I can answer for y'all about the course more broadly or about taking note-taking?
Well, first of all, Jess, thank you. Folks in the chat, please show your love to Jess for preparing this presentation for us.
I don't need any love. I have cats. I have enough.
I can still ask for it. Jess, yeah, we do have a couple of questions about the course and or your
Sorry, it's a little bright.
First being, will we get your slides?
Of course, I'll go ahead and I'll get my slides. So the big thing about the bootcamp as well, so y'all work at your own pace. We're never ever going to check your work. At the same time, there's never any obligation to be in Discord, sign up for the emails. But I'll go ahead and try and share my slides and slides from Bruce if we can get them on the website in the notes, and to a link to that on Discord. And I'll see if I can add a link to your weekly email, which you should get tomorrow for folks who want emails.
Awesome, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the Bad Website Club Bootcamp itself.
Of course.
One question here is, how long will the streams be? Are they Monday to Friday, just to confirm?
Stunning. So we've aimed for an hour for the streams. Historically, we found that they tend to go a little bit longer. So I can promise, especially on Thursdays, they won't go longer than 90 minutes, but we're going to aim for an hour. They might run a little bit longer if you've got an instructor who's very chilled out and very excited that day. They are Monday to Friday. We will also have some guest sessions. So the guest sessions will be put on the bootcamp schedule. They'll be, we'll mention them in the emails, we'll mention them in Discord. But really, really importantly is all of these are going to be available on YouTube afterwards. If you have to go after half an hour, or you can join us half an hour late, or if you're in a time zone where this is a terrible time for you, not a problem at all. Join us asynchronously.
That's right. All of the videos are being recorded. They'll be here on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@badwebsiteclub. And just wanted to re-point out the link here. If you go to badwebsite.club/bootcamps/spring-2026, you'll find the schedule as well as a calendar link to do all of your calendar things. So thank you. Okay, we got a couple more questions. One of them, let's see, we had how long is each live session? That's already answered. An hour-ish.
We're aiming for an hour, but this is not me trying to put the other instructors on the spot. We'll guarantee about an hour. If you get me as the instructor, sometimes I'll stay over because I like to talk to y'all.
Another question is, will finishing this bootcamp make me a level above my peers at uni?
Gosh, I don't know what you're studying at uni. So it can't hurt. And, oh gosh, do you know what? I'd be so excited to hear more about what you're studying at uni. If it's okay, I'd try and gently and lovingly push you to compete with yourself before your peers. So a lot of computer science degrees are focused on theory. They're going to be, a lot of them in the UK primarily study Java as the main, or Python more and more as the main programming language. And we're going to be really specifically focusing on building websites and those core web technologies in a really chilled out way. So hopefully this will make you a little bit more confident and chilled out than your peers at uni. But I can't promise you that you're going to get to be very smug and hold this over them.
Thank you. Got a question here. Will we do some assignments like building and deploying our profiles?
No, like a profile page. We're going to be doing so many assignments. So cool. The freeCodeCamp, we're going to be working from the responsive web design certification curriculum. That's correct. And that's going to have you do small exercises in the browser, but it's also going to ask you to do more complicated ones and creative ones. So yes, you can go ahead and extend that and build those outside of the tutorial environment if you want to show them off. We're mostly going to stay within the freeCodeCamp learning environment. Oh, and actually, y'all are grown. I can't give grown-ups homework, but we'll talk at the end about some solo work I'd love to ask y'all to do afterwards. So yeah, we're going to do a heck ton of coding assignments.
Awesome, thank you. Will we receive a complete certification?
Yes, not from the bootcamp, but if you sign up for an account on freeCodeCamp and complete all of the exercises and projects, you will get a freeCodeCamp certificate for your responsive web design certification. Yeah. The nice thing about this is if you need to finish, you need a little bit longer to finish, you can take as oh gosh, you know what? Or if you've got a bunch of time off work or school right now and you race through the whole thing and finish before us, I'd be impressed. I'd be terrified. But you'll be able to complete a certificate even if you don't finish with the bootcamp. Yeah.
Awesome. Got a question here. Why aren't we teaching JavaScript and only HTML and CSS?
This is such a good question. And if it's helpful, so Carmen's been doing this with me for a while. We have traditionally alternated. So doing web, HTML and CSS, and then JavaScript the next year. And it's so the same as it's hard to find a live stream time that works for everybody. It's also really hard to pick a certificate that works for everybody. Right now, we're teaching HTML and CSS because we want to go ahead and get those foundational skills down really well. Hopefully, also picking up some of the study skills where you're like, yeah, I loved this. I want to do JavaScript next. Or you're like, oh, I do want to do a programming language next, but maybe it's not JavaScript. So we're teaching HTML and CSS because that's bundled in with the certification. We're not teaching JavaScript this course because, yeah, we think that it deserves enough time and focus on itself. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question here is, hey, Jess, is this something I can add on my resume when it's finished?
You absolutely can. So there's a question of how much weight employers give certifications like this. They used to be, yeah, I think they used to give them a lot more weight than they do now, but the job market's a little challenging. If you don't have a ton of computer science stuff to add, put it on there. What could it hurt? But so far as resume building or CV building, if you're based out here, a lot of times building the projects that we work on and continuing to build them out as you learn and really polishing them can be a better way to build a portfolio and shows a bit better about a bit more of your talent than just listing the freeCodeCamp certification on your resume. So you can, but let's make sure that's not all you do. Please, if you don't mind.
Thank you. And sorry about the keyboard being loud.
I love a loud keyboard.
We got a question from YouTube here. Do we have any recommended reading before Monday's session?
Do you know what? Even worse than recommended reading, we have official reading. So if it's okay, I'll save this question till the end, and then we'll assign. Yeah, I promise we'll walk through. Oh gosh, and do you know what? I'll grab the link for that because whenever the question is, what do I have to do for Monday? Not even a problem. Bad Website Club website is always going to be where you want to go to see what you need to do a specific time. Let me grab that. Spring 2020. All right, so the next class is going to be Computer Basics. Gosh, where am I? I didn't like it when Bruce's talk mentioned you wouldn't have a bunch of different tabs open. I would have a bunch of different tabs open.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally don't have a ton of tabs open.
So yeah, we'll go through this at the end of the session, but if you're not able to join us or you have someplace else to be, take a look at this, and this is going to, oh gosh, we need to update this. So this needs a little bit more added to it. So we'll do this right now after class, but what we're gonna ask you to do is read all the theory in the Computer Basics section, and then read the review and read all of the Computer Basics theory and review sections and take notes, and then try and do the Computer Basics quiz on your own. So we'll go ahead and we'll update the website to mention this, and we will also put this into our email. So if you're on the email, we will, if anybody wants weekly email updates, those generally go out over the weekend for the week before. And where are those? Who am I? Who am I is a deeper question than I meant. Here we go. If you want your solo work and upcoming work emailed to you, there's also a weekly email.
Yep, we'll get that link up. I'll just go ahead and fire through a couple more questions because I realize we've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah, and I'm about to go eat some ice cream. So not that I like ice cream more than y'all. Yeah, let's go fast.
Cool. Yeah, so recommended readings done. Got a question here. If I've already completed the certification on freeCodeCamp, can I redo them with this bootcamp?
You can, but what I'd recommend you do, I want to be super clear. We love to have you come along. We love, love, love to have you participating. Yes, yes, yes. It might be more useful, instead of doing this again, to join us for the specific sessions that you had a challenging time with.
Ooh.
Spending that time and energy, supporting other learners in the Discord might be a really good way to reinforce that. But also spending more time on those projects that you did in that and getting those bigger and weirder and sillier and prettier. So the Bad Website Club, we're going to be making some bad websites. We're just going to be having a silly little time. You are so welcome to just go through all the course material again. But I think you might learn a lot more if you, worked on answering questions and teaching other learners to help solidify your knowledge, but B, building more silly little things with the material we're covering, if that's okay. So
I'm a big
yes, yes, yes. We'd love to see you. But you've already done this once. Spending the time getting silly might be more helpful. Sorry.
You're all good. Yeah, learning by doing. Big fan. Okay, so we got one more question. And I think this will be our last one for today. This is more of a general question for the community. I'm London-based. Not me. I'm reading the question. Do you know of any in-person beginner coding communities or something similar?
Yes. Oh gosh, that's such a good question. So different in-person coding projects will serve different environments. So for folks who are from groups underrepresented in tech, so these could be folks who aren't guys, folks who are not white folks, folks who are LGBTQI plus. There's Code Bar, which teaches in-person. But there's also some boot camps that teach by application that are free here in the UK. And we'll go ahead. This is a very UK specific question, and it's very unfair to folks who aren't here. So we'll go ahead and chat about this in the Discord as well for like what kind of programs and resources exist other places. I'll go ahead and start thinking about making a bigger list or collecting a bigger list of these. But there's a free, very technical, by application, free UK bootcamp. Oh gosh, I've spelled that all horrifically. And that's called Code Your Future. So if you tried this and you were like, oh, I want to do more, they work with folks who are disadvantaged, folks who are, folks for whom the Bad Website Club, we're all learning to build websites for different reasons. Some folks wanted to build a website for them. Some people wanted to do art. Some people want to do a job. Code Your Future is really specifically for, I want to train into a hard tech role.
I'd love to add, if I may, if you're watching this and also thinking like, well, I don't really have much of a choice for an in-person community, I'd love to really encourage y'all to join the Discord if you can. Just going to put the link up here and remind you that like one of the biggest points of the Bad Website Club boot camps and community is to not have to learn together. Not have to learn.
I'm like, no, all of you log off. We don't want to learn.
It's Friday evening. Bear with me, folks. Right. It's so that you don't have to learn alone, because I don't know about you, but if I spend too much time watching the internet, watching coding streamers be amazing at it, or just watch people post on LinkedIn or whatever about their incredible accomplishments, it can be really easy to get discouraged. So I would love to encourage you to use the opportunity to use this community to motivate one another, self-organize, find your peers, show stuff off, get feedback. Can I share a silly term I came up with recently?
Silly us up.
I think one of the best things you can do is just put stuff out there and just not worry too much about getting feedback. Remember, feedback is a gift. And it's meant to be constructive and positive. And like, try to channel something like, your confident inner self. I've started calling this white guy driven development, where you just like put it out there and hope for the best. And like, it'll be out there, it'll be scary, but then it'll be over. So keep in touch with each other, ask questions on the Discord, answer questions on the Discord, super important. Because
you want to.
I mean, of course. But I encourage you to, because I'm gonna be honest. One of the most best ways to learn is to explain stuff. So please do. Yeah, I think that covers everything, doesn't it, Jess?
Yeah. And on my way out, the very last thing I'll say is, if any of you are getting intimidated watching like super good programmers do super good things, you are going to be so reassured. I am always the goofiest web developer, and I am triple goofy if somebody can see me while I'm typing. So we are just going to have a silly little time. The whole world is big and stressful and weird right now. We are not going to have a hard time while we do this. We're learning hard stuff, but let's do it in a silly little way. Yeah. Amazing. Carmen, thank you so much. And I will say goodbye.
Bye, everybody. See you on Monday.
Monday. Oh, gosh.